the system that we have is about to collapse. It just can't sustain anymore. The situation that's happening currently is actually a breaking point, because there's going to be someone that's going to come down the line that's a lot like you and I. They're not going to look at the politics as a procedure anymore, but it is actually the crack that's needed. We're breaking apart old emotional barriers, old patterns. This is where you get a lot of the generational cycle breakers.
The last time we spoke, you're talking about, and you just mentioned too, by the way, some of the childhood trauma. But I think that is important to start from there, because this is like highly linked to how you eventually got completely involved with the work that you're doing right now. So I'd love for
Mm-hmm.
you to like give us some background on it. Of course, you can tell us whatever you feel is appropriate to tell us, and then lead that into like how that developed into you doing the work that you're doing today.
Absolutely. Yes. So I had a lot of key childhood points that influenced my awakening. But the first major upheaval, I was 10 years old and I was sent to live um, with my biological father, who I did not know at that time. And at the time, I was living in Michigan, and my father lived in Washington State. And all my siblings and my stepdad and my mom were all in Michigan. And I was basically just snatched out of that environment and put into an environment that I did not know. And it was a culture shock, because I come from a chaotic, low income family. To my dad had more money, but he was never really around. And then he had a family that really didn't want me in the picture. I was kind of the, added bonus that they didn't really want. So there was a lot of tension in that household. But that created a lot of insecurity and emotional collapse, because I didn't feel safe anywhere anymore. Um, and then fast forward, I ended up going through a lot of like sexual abuse, sexual trauma. Um, and that was when I was like 14, 15. So a big part of that is I realized that I had experienced those kinds of trauma before I'd ever even been able to like have a real loving relationship. So every relationship I ever built off the back of trauma, right? That my heart was already broken in that way.
Yeah.
But the childhood trauma kind of circles back that, I think we talked about this in our pre-interview, but I had this childhood imaginary friend, and her name was Apple Pie, and she was as real to me as you are sitting here. And she was there before I hit that 10-year trauma. And I remember like being always like isolated and alone, and she was always just the person I was there with, and like this comfort tool. Well, when that 10-year-old trauma happened, she was gone. And I realize now, as I've moved into the spiritual awakening aspect, that these guides, or what we call imaginary friends to children, um, kind of leave you in the trauma so that you can experience I don't like saying lessons, but the integration and the evolution periods that are going to come into your life. And then I think we talked about that. After my near death experience, I started working with my guides heavily. And I started to realize that as I was communicating with my three main ones, that there was always this energy back behind. And eventually, Apple Pie stepped forward, and she was, telling me that she was there the entire time, but she needed me to integrate the healing and to not think I was crazy or delusional. Because if she had come forward right away, then she would have made me think that it was a childhood fantasy coming through. So, um, yeah, so that's kind of why it's really important to listen to the children and what they experience. I also remember my past lives, and when I was a kid, when Apple Pie was still in my life. Um, I had a reoccurring dream. I was a Native American, and I was running. I was being chased by a buffalo, and I get to it wasn't a teepee, but like hut. I don't even know what the word is, because it's something different than what we were taught, but it was like
Yeah.
this structure. and I get to it and then it just ends. And so then I started researching reincarnation because I had that dream every single night, every night. And I ended up finding a man named Dr. Ian Stevenson, who the Vatican actually hired to disprove reincarnation, but he found so much evidence of it that he became one of the biggest advocates. But
Yeah.
he talked about birthmarks and how birthmarks are associated to deaths in a previous incarnation. And I actually have a perfect circle on my back. And then right on the other side in my stomach, I have what looks like an exit wound. So it was just another interesting
Wow.
physical connection to something that I knew as a child to be true. So, and then when I started getting into quantum healing hypnosis, because I'm a quantum healing hypnosis practitioner, I discovered my first time doing it. My first life was that life that came through. And so I understood what the point of that was, but also why my energetic and emotional bodies attach so heavily to that lifetime, and the gifts and skills that I brought into this lifetime with me, because I was a medicine healer and spiritual leader, shaman, and I do all those things in this incarnation. So I brought all that with me into this incarnation. So that was why I was so connected to it as a child. And we continuously write off these children's um, intuition and experiences as, delusions, or she's got a great imagination, or all those things, and we don't give enough safe space for kids to really talk about those kind of things that are happening.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about, from your experience, what you think about past lives and how they can impact the current life that we're in?
100%. This is actually where I probably have my most knowledge. So I've done hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousand, past life regression sessions. And we have astrology too. So we have your north node and your south node. So I can actually see what gifts you're bringing from a past life, or what karma you're bringing with you into this lifetime, and what it's supposed to help you integrate or heal within this lifetime. So I always tell people, I'm like, study the art of detachment, because the only thing that goes with us is our memories. And it's very true, because your subconscious holds all of the memories of all of your past lives. And so when I do regression, we can actually bring those forward to review again, and I work very closely with your higher self and your guides. Um, so they'll bring forward what is best for you in your time that you're in right now, not even just the incarnation. It's what's going to be for your highest good at that time. Um, and I've had people that have had just beautiful love stories come forward. Like all three of their lifetimes were just these gorgeous love stories. And then when we get to the higher self and we are talking to the actual higher self or the subconscious, the higher self will say things like, we showed you these because you don't feel like you're capable of true love, or that you're not worthy of true love. So it's never, well, I don't know. It's not always a horrific bad thing, a lot of the times we have these beautiful lives that come forward. And um but yeah, your past lives influence you in a lot of ways, because your subconscious is this program that's kind of running in the background, and it fuels your thought pattern. So your prefrontal cortex, your decision making, is actually being fueled by what's running in the subconscious. So I always tell people, I'm like, at night when you're sleeping, listen to affirmations. It's the best way to reprogram your subconscious that you could possibly do for yourself. And you're already sleeping, so why not use the time to do something that benefits you? Because all of the things that we are afraid of, or even fears that we have from a past life, like I know I struggled with stepping into my spiritual practice, because, well, I wasn't really sure why, but I knew there was connection to my mother, and she was really into spiritualism and tarot and crystals and all that. And as I was still not healed, I had a lot of tension with her about that. So I actually turned my back
Mm.
on my spiritual gifts, even though I was able to see spirits, and everyone around me was always like, yeah, Bree's definitely connected to something, But
Yeah.
I kept turning my back to it because it was kind of a trauma trigger. So, we have these gifts, and yet my what I ultimately found out, my biggest aversion to it was, in one of my past lives I was hung for being a witch. And in that lifetime, I saw that I was an herbalist. Like basically, that's what I was doing. I was making medicine out of herbs, but I was hung as a
Mm,
witch. And so, if you take that and you put it into this lifetime, that would create a, a hesitation into stepping into a spiritual leader again, right? Because you were
mm,
persecuted for it in a past life. So there's so many things that create these blockages within our current lifetime from your past lives that we bring with us.
mm. Absolutely. Absolutely. How do you think we can, for example, like if someone doesn't have access to someone who can assist them with this, how can we begin to tune into those energies to clear some of those blocks if we feel like maybe there's an issue that has been going on, right, in someone's life
Hmm.
for a long time and they're doing the healing work, but things keep showing up and they're like, why am I still working with this? Like, is this now from this life or is this a past life issue? Like, so how can someone, or is there a way for someone to kind of like find a way to work with that energy to kind of clear that block?
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have access to a practitioner that can help, guide you through hypnosis, I would recommend taking up what's called automatic writing or scribing. Um, and that's where you enter yourself into kind of a meditative state and then you start writing and you don't stop yourself, just write. Often we'll get messages that come through. I've had times where I've wrote 8 full pages and I don't remember writing any of it, but I'll read it back and I'm like, I don't really remember saying any of this. Actually, I talk a lot about this in another interview that I did. But I have a piece of paper that I had wrote right at the beginning of when I had a Kundalini awakening in 2022. And right after that happened, I did automatic writing. And one of the things I wrote about was, it was a movie, and again, I didn't even really know the movie that well, so it was weird that it came through. But it was The Guardian with Kevin Costner, and they're rescue divers for the Coast Guard. And in that, he says a line, and he says, "The only difference between you and the victim is the attitude in which you entered the water." When I was scribing, I wrote that, but I didn't know the movie well enough to actually like pull that line. So I was like, that was really weird. So I went back and watched the movie, and now I understand. Well, actually, I read it a year later, and I totally understood why it was there, because it wasn't about, you know, rescuing people from a sinking ship. It came to me because it's about spiritual awakening. And my role was going to be as like the rescue diver, but we're all in the same ocean, we're all in the same chaos. It's how you are entering into that ascension and that awakening from a healed state or from calm or from things just flowing through you as opposed to happening to you.
Right.
And that's what that message was, in that, to understand that, we can be in the awakening, we can be in the panic, we could be in the fear, we could be in the anxiety, or you can understand that your attitude is what's going to keep you safe within this chaotic energy, right?
Right. Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
writing has some great. I have journals and journals of automatic writing that I've had some very profound things come through. So I would recommend doing that, or I do intention dreaming. I guess I haven't done it for a while, but when I first started out, it was really helpful. I would write my intention for a dream I wanted to have, or a connection or a message, and I would put it under my pillow with a piece of amethyst. And then it didn't always happen that night, but it would happen that I would get an answer through a dream state. So yeah, there are ways of tapping into that. You could do self hypnosis. I wouldn't always recommend this unless you kind of know how to like hold and navigate your own thought patterns, but um, it's not a bad way to start.
I love that. That's really good advice. You gave me that same advice too for myself the last time we spoke. That's very good
Which,
advice. I find that
yeah.
when I write, things come through that I'm
Hmm.
just like, this came from somewhere else because I
Yeah,
wasn't
and
thinking this.
Yeah, and writing, there's so many things. Like I always tell people, like, you guys want a quick fix answer to spiritualism. I will tell you right now, start writing. Write everything because it's neurologically based that if you write pen to paper, it actually will flip neurons in your brain. Neurotransmitters will come back on that were shut down from trauma or chaos, or, our bodies are the most amazing healing systems.
Yeah.
It still floors me. I studied psychology. I'm getting my doctorate in frequency because I want to be able to show people that your body is meant to heal, right? This is why sound healing is so strong and so effective.
Yeah.
But you're writing, your brain actually starts turning things back on that you have shut down. So when you're in those energetic loops, often it's your own brain sending out a signal that keeps you within that loop. So writing isn't just about getting your thoughts and feelings down on paper, it's actually doing something on a biological level. And it's so beneficial. And then also getting your feelings out. Plus, I like to burn my burn letters, I call them, where if I'm mad about something, I just get it out. So it's not sitting here floating around in my brain or in my heart space. And there's just so many benefits to journaling. And I feel like people, it's probably the advice I give every one of my clients.
Yeah.
And every time I check in with them, like, have you guys been journaling or have you been journaling? They're like, no. I'm like, it's like the easiest thing to do. It's the best best thing I can ever offer you. And people just don't want to write. And I do believe that there's a reason why we have all the computers. We're typing. We write less and less, and so we are taking on more and more in our energy field as far as our emotions that are not coming out. It's like everything is disconnecting you from the just primal things like writing. It's
Exactly.
such an easy fix. Well, not easy
Exactly.
fix, but an easy thing to do. And it doesn't even have to be like um it doesn't have to be heavy every time. Just write, like, you know, as it comes up.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. It's so true. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know. Like with the technology, I mean, everything, there's no good or bad, right? It's just like
Hmm.
how it's used and the intention behind it. But like I know like with the technology, you're always typing. It's like I don't know if people just can't be bothered with writing, or if they have like this block, like the disconnection is just so much that they have this block about just writing their emotions down. I don't know what that is, but yeah, I find that it's very, very helpful. So I hope people begin to pick it up more because it's so good. It's so helpful. And that's initially, as I told you, like when I was going through my own trauma in my life, that is really how I learned to deal with that trauma. And that is how I healed a lot of the things that I've been through writing things down, writing my feelings down and processing things out of my system. So yeah,
100%. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I have hundreds of them. I mean, it's I mean, even my kids, I have a 12 and a 17-year-old. They'll like, this made me mad at school, and I'm like, go write it down. Just get it out of here, get it out of the heart space, get it out of your energy field, write it, burn it, whatever you want to do with it, rip it up, whatever makes you, feel the energy has become a physical act. That's how we release this stuff that gets built up in us. And I think I was telling you about Kathy O'Brien, who was a early victim of MK Ultra, and she married her husband, who was in one of the alphabets, CIA, or like he was a freelancer for all of them, but he taught her that the cure for MK Ultra was writing. So the brainwashing that had happened was actually just writing things down, actually turned those neurons and neurotransmitters back on, and she was able to. I don't think she never claimed that she beat the MK Ultra, but significantly better. So even that, just the programming that we are given every day, as a child. Um, I was just talking to my daughter; she's 17 today about this. Going back to like childhood, I think that's where we're kind of starting. But
Yeah.
she's a really good student. She works really hard, but she's got a 3.0, and she's like, I don't get it. Like, I can't get past this. And they have just recently put in effect that 80% of their grades are going to be based on tests. And
What?
I sat and told her, yeah, I know, right? And I sat and told her, I was like, look,
That's
everything
crazy.
that is designed in the school districts are to make you doubt yourself, make you feel like you're not excelling or that you won't be good at something. It's an inhibitor to the population so that people don't take the risk. People don't believe that they can do anything. You know, we teach kids at a young age they can be anything. You know, you could be president, you could be astronaut. And then we literally have set up a system that tells them every reason why they can't. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And so what happens is that they're in their mind, they're like, oh, I could have been anything, but I can't even get, past a 3.0, right? So we're creating the inhibitors early on for them to self doubt, to have low self esteem. I'm not good at this, so I shouldn't even try to do this. I have so many friends that didn't go to college, and they talk about it now that they want to go to college. And I'm like, go to college. You're like, oh, I was a terrible student. I was like, it does not matter. It does not matter if you were a terrible
yeah.
student in high school. It doesn't, because I was a terrible student in high school because I was just going through a lot. But I have a 3.97, so it doesn't matter what they said back then, but yeah,
Exactly.
we create all these limitations for these children, and it's all done with the intention of being good. But when you start stripping away how this came down the line over, this is generational. This is not just like parents today are making mistakes, right? This is society, generational, systemic, down the line from our great grandfathers, our great 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 grandfathers, and that system has just come down and it does not work anymore.
Mm, that is so true. Yeah. The way that the system was organized is not to create these like very empowered individuals who like are really connected to themselves and like really honing into who they are and what their purpose is, but it's just to create more people to feed into the system that they created, the capitalist
Right,
system and everything else in between, right? They want people
right.
to become workers, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Workers
John D.
and
Rockefeller created the Board of Education, and he literally said, I am not educating the masses. I am creating good workers." And that was
exactly.
the owner of Exxon, and all the gas companies, and so yeah, you've been put into a system. I mean, if you even look at it, a lot of people have made the connection how prisons and schools are very much the same structure. I mean,
Yes.
but also another thing people don't know, it's true. But another thing a lot of people don't put together is if you have children, you take them into kindergarten, it's all bright colors and it's like, very appealing to the eye and it stimulates creativity. But when you go into like first grade's a little bit, but like when you get hit like second, third, fourth, fifth, notice how everything turns beige?
Yeah, they start
That's
to
because they're
suck the
not
life out of
stimulating.
everything.
Yeah, they're not stimulating your creative skills or cultivating that. I'm actually in the early processes. My ex-husband's wife and I are very close. She's great. She's very heavily involved in these school districts and she does a lot of work with charter schools. So we're actually working out how we can make a curriculum based on meditation, sound therapy, also using natal and astral charts to look at what a child's strengths and weaknesses are going to naturally be. And like I was saying earlier, I could see what's in your south node and your north node. So what you brought in with you in this lifetime for skills, for what your purpose is going to be in this lifetime. And if you start mapping all that at a young age and then, doing classrooms outside where they're grounding, um, the benefits are just, it's so immense. Or even teaching children about their energy systems, their chakra systems, how their body can self heal if they, keep themselves in an energetic frequency, there's a lot of cultures that know this to be true, but we act like it's not real and that's all woo woo.
Hmm.
It's like, but that was all done by design because the more
Yeah.
you realize you can heal yourself, the less you need other people or outside influences to heal you. So
Yeah.
so it doesn't
But
benefit the system to know that this is good
exactly.
practice.
Exactly. I love that. I love that program that you guys are developing because like it's like helping to kind of undo some of the things or buffer the effects, I should say, because, like not everyone can afford to homeschool their children
Right.
to teach them these things, right? That's
Hmm.
understandable. So that would definitely help to buffer the effects of all of these systemic issues that are happening, that are like programming our kids to become the next set of workers. So
Hmm.
it's really crazy. It's really, really crazy. But and speaking on kids, like going back to what you were saying earlier about like apple pie, your guide who was your imaginary friend as a child, imaginary friend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And how important it is for us to really listen to our kids and tune into what they were saying. Like you even mentioned in the last time we spoke about your son and how he remembers being on the Titanic. Like that
Hmm.
is huge, right? It's so important for us to listen to our kids and to hear them and really taking what they're saying. And even if you don't kind of understand what it is that they're experiencing, because maybe you're not connected at that moment in that way, the least you can avoid doing is not to dismiss them.
100%.
Yeah. So
100%. That
like,
it's because what happens with that too is you're inserting your generational beliefs onto this next generation. And if anybody's following like what's called what a lot of people are calling the great ascension or the new earth shift is happening right now, these kids, more and more kids are remembering past lives or remembering their skills very early on. And so you can't project your beliefs because this is a very new world that they're going to enter into. That is why energetically and spiritually there's an uptick of like nonverbals because we're actually being trained slowly to evolve into telepathy because we're learning how to communicate without using words. We're learning compassion through action and so this next just the generations that are kind of coming down the line have a huge role in our evolution and people don't really see it yet because we're still kind of stuck in the 3D, a lot of people are 3D mind that they're not seeing the bigger picture, and the bigger picture is that this generation that's coming in really needs to be nurtured and cultivated because their roles are so much more than what we're being told, like
mm,
like the nonverbals for example. Oh, it's a disability or it's a, it's like, no, it's not. It's a superpower. They're teaching us how to be compassionate to each other, how to watch social cues or, like if you've ever gone through massive trauma, like I have, I can read someone's face before the words ever come out of their mouth, right? Like the smallest little twitches, the way their eyebrow, like it happens so automatic because I had to always be processing my environment for safety. But they're kind of doing that same thing. They're teaching people that didn't necessarily have that kind of childhood, but you're learning like the little things that their eyes might do or the way that their, mouth might flicker. And so you're learning those things. So they're very strong teachers.
yeah, that is so true. I think people often, we've been trained to view disability as something that is bad or that is something that is wrong with the person. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone has really stopped to recognize how much power there is in that type of experience and in learning how to work with someone who is experiencing that disability. How the way that we've designed society that has kind of like pushed um, others out because they don't kind of fit the mainstream
Mm-hmm.
way of thinking or doing things, whatever category of disability they may fall into. We've tended to like push people out. People have really had to advocate for their rights, for accessibility services, even at work. Like
Mm-hmm.
that is a huge thing. Like the amount of people I've spoken to with even invisible disabilities who have a hard time getting their managers to hear them out, to even believe that they have a disability or to even
Yeah.
care that they have a
Mm-hmm.
disability and need those accommodations. And it's so true. Like there is so much to learn from that because we need more compassion. We need more empathy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
A
that
hundred
is what
percent.
has been lacking for the longest time. Speaking to someone, he was blind the last time, like way back when. I think it was probably 2 years ago we had this conversation, and he made like such a very good point to say that if society was created to include everyone, right, regardless of what their skills, abilities are, and whatever spectrum they fall on of anything, it's actually beneficial to everyone. It's beneficial to
Mm-hmm.
everyone else when we create a society that includes others who are a little bit different from the rest of the population. It actually is a plus for us who are functional in, I guess, normal ways, for lack of a better word, right? Who are more functional in certain things, who don't have a disability. So it's very interesting how the lack of compassion, the lack of empathy is really weird, how society has been developed to kind of just like push people to the curb because they're
Mm-hmm.
different. But there's so much that we can learn from that. There's so much that
Yeah.
we can build on from that for ourselves and for them as
Mm-hmm.
well. So like it's really weird. I do really believe that, as you said, that these things exist because it is trying to teach us something. It is trying to open our eyes to something else, to a different world, to a different way of perceiving things.
Yeah, I 100% believe that that's what the purpose, because I had a near death experience in 2020. I think we talked about that. But one of the things I was shown in that experience was the quantum field, right? And in the quantum field, I saw like the web of life. And the most profound part of that was like, there is no separation. You,
Right.
me, the whole thing, it's all interconnected and everything is connected to one another. But when you understand and fully accept that information to be true, that means you also have to accept that every single experience, every single life, every single incarnation is all for a purpose. There's no mistakes, there's no accidents. And so when you look at people that may have something that's, I just say, a different ability, because
Yeah.
even mental health, I mean, I don't like telling people that, like, if you have the mental health, I mean, obviously keep doing what you're doing, but I have a very close relative who is schizophrenic, and of course I just got very interested in her condition or whatever, and I started asking her. I was like, so the voices, are they the same, are they different, like what do they tell you, blah. And I just went into this deep research project, and what I found fascinating is that she used to be um in a very low vibrational state and had addictions and things like that, and when she was in active addiction, the things would tell her terrible, horrible things. And it was always different voices and things. So then I found, as she ascended and started getting like her life together, and she's doing amazing things now for the community. Um, the voices say a lot more positive things. And I think that's a very interesting thing to look at, because is she crazy? Is it a mental illness, or is she channeling, and she's channeling different levels of frequency, right? So as you ascend and you go into higher vibrational states, you're channeling in with higher energies, more angelic realms, more guides. But when you're in these deep, dark places, you channel the darker energies, and they're the ones that kind of tell you what you're doing, or what awful things are in the world and how everyone judges you. It just tells you bad things. And I find that very interesting, because it's another place where we should maybe explore. If we stop telling people, and not this just in schizophrenics, I mean all of them, that there's something
Yeah.
wrong with them, and start telling them that, this is a gift and this can be cultivated and it can be shifted, how profound that would be on our society when we stop. It's interesting. I was just talking to another guy about this, that cultures, when you used to hear voices, you started being interned as a shaman in a lot of cultures for centuries, and now you hear a voice in your head and you have mental health issues.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like there should be more of a reserve before we jump in. And I'm not saying that no mental health issues don't exist or that they're all tied to spiritual connections. But what I am saying is that maybe we should just take a second to not be so hasty in telling someone something's wrong with them, when the truth is, if you put them into higher vibrational states, they might be channeling something that could be, angelic. And, like, I don't like talking about religion too much, but, Moses was channeling, Noah channeled, so
Yeah,
it's like,
they
so
all
why
did.
demonize? Yeah, exactly. Why demonize what's happening? If we can put them into these higher vibrations, they are the connection to the divine, you know?
Mm,
So I just think it's another
absolutely.
interesting thing that we just kind of quickly label something as, oh, you're weird, or there's something wrong with you, or, you have a disability, and we're not giving our compassion and our empathy to these people that actually are teaching us like fascinating things all the time. Some of my favorite people are the outcasts, or the people that don't fit into the seam of society. It's like, I'm one of them. I mean, I don't a lot of people say, huh, she's kind of weird. I'm like, yep. My daughters, I mean, they'll be like, people think I'm weird. I'm like, it's a good place to be, trust me. It's like,
My daughter says the same thing too. She's just like, "Yeah, you're a really nice person, but you're a bit weird. But
yeah,
it's a good weird."
it's a good weird. Yeah, but that's because you don't fit in the folds, and they don't know how to box you up, and
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, exactly. And I love the way that you use the word differently abled. That is it perfectly describes what that is, because I think the other aspect of that is when you get labeled that way, especially if, well, regardless of what age that you might experience some type of disability or mental illness, whatever it may be, you are taught that there's something wrong with you. Like the medical
Hmm.
system tells you that if you are experiencing this, something is wrong with you. So, like, whether you acquire it, whether you were born with it or you acquire it throughout life, it's easy to take on that label. And even though you might not verbalize it, sometimes for some people, they really do feel like something is wrong with them, that
Hmm.
something is broken about them. And that is the lack of compassion, because we have a system that's telling you this and treating you in that way. And then they're pumping you with medications and all these things, right?
Hmm.
I mean, definitely there are illnesses, not to negate that there are illnesses, but
Hmm.
I think that how we give meaning to these experiences is where the issue comes in. Like the meaning that we give
Hmm.
to someone experiencing a mental issue or a physical issue, it's the meaning that we place on these things is where we have the issues coming in, and where we have people feeling as if they're broken, and then society treating them as if they're broken or not enough, or like completely disregarding them and their needs. So there's that aspect which you address really well. And then there's the aspect whereby there are so many strengths, the things that we label as our weaknesses, there's just so much strength in there if we change the meaning and change the way that we perceive these things. Like you can
Oh,
find so
100%.
much
Yeah.
of your strength in the things that you think is wrong with you.
Oh, 100%. And like you said earlier, I liked how you said that there's no good or bad. And that's a thing that we as humans like to label things and put them in categories. But the truth is, again, this is something I saw in that quantum web, is that there is no good or bad. It just is. And
Yeah.
everything is connected to this experience that we've come here. How I explain it to my clients, I'm like, the best way to explain is like, you are a spark of source, right? That's why people, the God's within you, because you are a spark of God, and you are here experiencing, and I call people little nanobots, that you're just here having this experience to report back to source. And
Yeah.
so when we're here and we're all like having that kind of level of experience, every person you interact with is a mirror of you and your experience, and they are all opportunities to learn and grow through. And so when we're, when we're segregating people and their experiences, it just creates a divide in our own self. You know what I mean? And so people, that's why people right now are feeling so torn and alone and disconnected, because everything in society right now is trying to convince everyone that we should be fighting with each other, and
Mm-hmm.
that we should be um, not accepting of other people, their views, their beliefs, race, religion, whatever it is. And it's been brought down the line just to keep us all arguing and fighting amongst ourselves and not healing the true core wound, which is really the unconditional love that was taken from us through systemic society. You know what I mean? And the truth
Yeah.
is, and the thing that I saw in my near death experience, is that the only thing that matters in this world is unconditional love. And we're here experiencing the duality of that. That's so when I had my near death, I remember just this overwhelming like feeling of love. Like I have never felt anything like it before. I tell people all the time, like if I could bottle that up, oh my gosh, it's it's so deep. It's like in every fiber of me felt this deep, deep unconditional love. And we're here to experience the duality of that. I have a lot of people that say things like, why do bad things happen then here if, God or source or whatever, why do we go through these bad things? And it's a simple truth that we're here experiencing the duality of unconditional love, fear,
Yeah.
anger, hostility, rage, all of those things, even joy, even accomplishment. Because if you think about your soul, if you only knew unconditional love, when I had crossed back over, I never would have understood what that was, because I have
Yeah.
experienced pain and suffering and anger and all those things. So when I came home to it, I knew that this was special. You know what I mean? But if you never
Yeah.
have anything to counterpart that, then how do you know what true unconditional love it actually feels like? So there's so
Yeah.
much more happening, and the truth is that we're all supposed to be here acting out of unconditional love. That's what we're here to do. I have so many people that are like, "What's my purpose in life?" And I'm like, before I ever pick up an Akasha records or anything, I'm like, your purpose is to come back to who you are and lead with unconditional love. That's what Jesus was telling us. Jesus said, in all things are possible through love. You know what I mean? And that's the truth. We can bend time, space, and reality if you are operating fully out of unconditional love. That's why I'm able to heal with my hands just like he was, because it's holding that space for no judgment. I don't judge people. I don't care. I don't care what your story is. Because I know that every experience here is a story that was written before their incarnation, and that they're here to experience that so that they can have that reported back to the collective and source. And so there's so much more happening that's not. We're very individualists, and we think our story is the story, and but
Yeah.
the truth is that we are a collective, and the separation is really the illusion. And when people start to break apart that illusion, and that a big one is, the division of different people's abilities. When we come home to that,
Yeah.
that's where we'll actually be able to start having real community growth, you know,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We create categories and labels for everything. For
Mm-hmm.
everything. And like I get it, the way the human brain works is helpful to have categorization and things like that, but the way that we use it against ourselves. We use it
Uh-huh.
in a really unhealthy way because we use it to keep people out. We use it
Yeah.
to make ourselves feel like the more special, more important thing, and everything else doesn't matter. We use it in a very selfish way, in a very individualistic way, instead of just
Mm-hmm.
using it to help us to understand the world that we live in and to create systems that actually work for everyone.
Yeah. No, yeah,
It's,
we definitely we could be
yeah,
building much better systems. And that's why I tell people, I'm like, this is why I do not watch the news. I do not keep up with mainstream media, because all of it is connecting or telling people that, again, like we started, that everything is wrong and everything is bad and everything is falling apart, and you know,
Yeah.
and the truth is that it's not that. You got to kind of go, I feel like I just went full circle, but read between the lines and what's really happening at a deeper, like, soul level. All the things on the news and the TV, that's all just meant to distract you and to make people believe that we are more divided than we actually are. And that creates, I actually can go so far as I tell people this. I'm like, the Romans have been doing this for centuries. This is not
Mm.
new. What we are experiencing, the Colosseum, feed them bread and give them a show. And I can actually pull this into even well, even the
Yes.
NFL, or even like main sports, okay? Not that I don't bag on sports. I'm just saying, like, if you look at just this one little systemic situation they have. So you have a team, right? And everybody that watches, not everybody, but most people have like a team, right? But you're not actually a fan of the team. You're a fan of the logo, and the team mate or team players actually switch out in and out all the time, but you're still a fan of the team. So you're
Yeah.
actually picking a side. And so you have systemically been created to pick a side and stick with it no matter what the people involved are. This
Yes.
makes it much easier for us to pick a side whenever anything in culture happens. Like, we got wars going on and people are so quick to pick a side, pick a team, and they forget about the genocides that are happening all over the world that are people. These are people. I don't care what the politics are. At the end of the day, these are people. And we have become so desensitized to that. And I do think things like reality shows and sports, we pick a person, pick a side, and we don't really care about the people involved. And it's kind of heartbreaking to watch, but I do believe it's part of the systemic breakdown of how people interact with each other.
Yeah.
We're so quick to pick a team, but not care about who's being hurt in it, or it's like, at the end of the day, if that person's gone, they're gone, right? No, now you don't like that person even though you were rooting for them because they were on your team. So it's a very deep symbolic um system that we have. So
It is so true. It is so true. I'm glad you pointed that out because, like growing up, I never jived with, like, I love sports, but for me, I didn't understand like this passionate holding on to, oh, this is my team, regardless, because the players switch out. So it's never the same team. It's never the
right.
same team. So what truly is it that you're holding on to about the team? Because the players switch out all the time. The way that the teams begin, it's not the way that they end, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
and it's
found
it's
that
a
I always
training
found it
tool.
exactly.
It's a training tool to keep you thinking you have to pick something and stick with it.
Yeah,
That's the big thing, is that it also creates this belief that if you believe in something, that you have to kind of stick with it even though it's not what you truly believe anymore, but you've done it for so long that people will stick with a belief system even if it's ignorant or horrible, because they've believed it for so long. And like I said, sports is another one of these, how we kind of keep that in our systems. Not that there's anything wrong with
exactly.
sports, but that is how these major systems are brought down. I tell people, like, there's pillars all around of how we are being controlled that people aren't looking at, because it's so connected to their everyday environment that they don't even take the time to step back and look at it. There's actually a really interesting experiment that was done, and I talk about this a lot, but it's so perfect for what's going on in our world. But they took 5 monkeys and they put them in a big cage, and there was a ladder in the center, and they had bananas at the top. And they put these monkeys in, and then anytime a monkey tried to climb the ladder to get to the bananas, they would spray water on all of the monkeys. Well, eventually, when any monkey tried to climb up the ladder, the rest of the monkeys would attack that monkey and make sure that it didn't climb the ladder. Now, they started swapping out the monkeys slowly, and then that monkey that didn't know about the water would try to climb up the ladder, and all the monkeys would attack it, right? Well, then eventually they had, all of the monkeys were new and had never experienced the consequence of the water, but none of them would climb up because they were told, or they were trained, that the rest of the monkeys are going to attack you. So they have now created their own system and have no idea what the consequences actually were, and they just continue doing what somebody or this other group had experienced. This is how mass hypnosis happens. This is how
Yeah.
they get you to keep following a program, even though there's no reason that we are doing it here now, but because generational, we were programmed in. I won't get into this too much, but look at the orphan trains and the Great Reset. There's a lot of evidence that show uh, that the was reset. They took these orphans and they basically put them into homes. Uh, Read the orphan trains. It's really fascinating. But then they ended up implanting these orphans with false memories, and then those orphans would go out and have families, and then they would teach their kids these false things and false narratives, and it boomed through society, and it completely changed the course of how our society was operating. And so, you can look all this stuff up. It's history.
Yeah.
They're not going to teach you that in your history books because that
There's
doesn't benefit,
no.
but
They're not gonna tell
but
you that.
no,
No, you gotta self-educate. You gotta
a hundred
self-educate in
percent.
this society. Yeah, yeah. You're touching on so many things there. Like, yeah, using the sports theme was just like, when you look at that and when you take it even higher to political structures, and like the
Mm-hmm.
liberals and the conservatives, or like even back home from where I'm from Jamaica, and like you have like people that subscribe to one political, like ideology, or like one political group. And I always found it weird even as a child, because I'm just like, yeah, but it's not the same people in power throughout generations, and you have family like generationally subscribing to the same ideology and like leaning one way towards one party. And then what happens every time there's an election? There's like wars happening. There's like
Mm-hmm.
people like killing each other, people like hurting each other over political beliefs. It's really weird. I always found it really weird. And in my head, I'm just like, well, if your grandparents subscribe to this party, why do you feel like you need to subscribe to that party? And most of the times, what I hear is like, well, our family has been with this party, like, has been supporting this party for generations. And I'm just like, that's weird. That's weird.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Because
I tell my kids, I'm like, it's left wing, right wing, it's the same bird. I mean,
exactly,
it doesn't matter. But again, yeah, that's the picking teams. You stick with something even though it's not
picking
even something
teams,
you truly believe in. And it's
even if it's something
wild that
that
we still
doesn't
do that.
work for you.
Uh-huh.
Even if
And
it's
you don't want
something
to,
that it
yeah.
doesn't work for you. How many times have people gone to elections and then regret who they chose? Like,
But they won't
because you
admit
just
to it. That's the interesting thing.
exactly.
I've come to find that they'll still sit there, even though we can watch a dumpster fire happen. And then people will still be like, well, it's like, but I do kind of stay away from politics, but I will say this. I am an
Yeah.
Akashic Records reader, and the one thing that I saw, because I really followed along with the election and things that were happening. I won't give anybody beliefs because to me politics is just a way to control the masses. But
Yeah.
um, we do have the system that we have is about to collapse. I mean, it just can't sustain anymore, and not that the actual system, but the people, right? We have too many people that are self-serving, and that it's a public service position. But everything that's kind of happened, the media and how, society and how everyone kind of attacked Trump, and he's, all the things. And I don't care what people's beliefs are. And I don't like anybody in politics, but but
Me
it
neither.
created it created I honestly, I tell people this all the time. Like, if I could make a big change, I would take everyone in politics and I would make it a massive lottery, and every 2 years we have this lottery to fill positions. And then you have an entire system built on teachers, police officers, you know firemen, garbage men, whatever, but people that are on the ground in real situations that can start making some decisions.
Yeah.
Because this, and do it like jury duty, like, crap, now I have to go do or I have to go be in the Senate, for 2 years or whatever. I feel like it would just really give us a lot more hands-on people that actually know what the true problems are in our communities, not people sitting in ivory towers telling people what's wrong with their system. It's like you guys
Yeah.
are making laws that are actually really harmful for the
Harmful.
people on the ground. I mean, I talk to social workers all the time. They're like, there's so much red tape. There's so many things I can't get done because this system has now been set up to do all of these loopholes, and it's just a mess.
Yeah.
But yeah, the politics, that's, yeah. But well, oh yeah, my Akashic record. So what I did see though is that the situation that's happening currently is actually a breaking point, because there is going to be someone that's going to come down the line that's a lot like you and I, where it's like they're not going to look at the politics as a procedure anymore. That's going to be looked at as these are people. This is not procedural, isn't working. The policies aren't working. So I did see that in the Akashic records that we do have that person kind of coming down the line, and that what's happening now is just the breaking point, or the crack, if you will. So
Oh,
that's
can't
why I
wait
say
for
I'm like,
that.
I know, I say that's why I say I'm like, what, it might look like a dumpster fire, and it is, but it is actually the crack that's needed for real change to actually come down the line. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Tell me more. Tell me more about like some of what you've been tuning into. Um, because a lot of people, as you said, they feel like it's a whole like shit show, like it's a whole dumpster fire happening.
yeah. Well,
But like,
there is a lot of that. I mean, but that's kind of the distraction, right? That
yeah.
um yeah, so I've been a lot of things have kind of been tuning in, or I've been tuning into. A big one is the rise of the feminine collective. The feminine was many, many thousand years was taken out of her seat of power. And the truth is, the feminine polarity is the connection to source, right? That's why women are
Yeah.
more, not women. I don't want to say that, because it's actually an energy, a feminine energy, are more connected to, um, their intuition, and they're more receptive, and that's what the feminine energies are. um and that collective is now very heavily rising, and not only just rising, they're integrating, and that is the key, is that we're breaking apart old emotional barriers, old patterns. This is where you get a lot of the generational cycle breakers, and
Yeah.
with that, because the feminine collective is now integrating, the masculine energy can do nothing else, because polarity and duality, they are now being forced into the healing. And this is where we're going to have the new group of people that are actually going to make real substantial changes in the systems, because you're going to have people that are going to see above and beyond the system that was keeping us separated and in depression and anxiety and all the things that have kept us imprisoned. I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you think slavery ended, it didn't. They just changed the
Mm,
program, and we're now all
yeah.
in it. You know what I mean? And they give you just enough to get by. So you go to work, you do what they need you to do so they can be making the money. And then you have enough to pay for your home and your food, and maybe do something fun. But then you're doing that eat, sleep, repeat. It's all of us though. Now it's going to have to be the collective against the few that have kept us imprisoned in our own communities and driving us all apart. And there's so many people that are waking up to that. It's like, wait a second, like, it's not, it doesn't make sense when you actually look at
Yeah.
it and pull the lens back. You know what I mean? Why are we all fighting with each other? I don't even believe that. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
because we were taught that for so long. And that kind of goes back to what you were saying about, like, your family believed that, and so you continue to, dig that, dig your heels in on a belief that you don't even actually believe. And it keeps
Yeah.
that division. But people are starting to awaken to that. And that's the beauty that I see in society, and what's happening now is that people are starting to become so aware that, you know, we're all in this together. It's not about what's best for me or best for you. It's like we're starting to see that what's best for the collective is going to be what's best for everyone. It kind of goes into that, like, there's a Japanese, I don't know if you call it a haiku, but about the people on the boat, and the guy starts drilling a hole under his seat in the boat, and everybody starts freaking out, and he's like, doesn't matter, this is my seat. But they're like, but the you put a hole in the boat, it's all of us, right? And people are starting to
Mm-hmm.
become aware that we need to stop with people that are drilling holes in the boat, because it's all of us in this at this point. It's like we need to come together and realize that, if we continue to allow this path to unfold, that we are all going to be in this, destitute of a society. And so it's now at the time where people are starting to, kind of rise up and let their voice be heard about the collapses that they're seeing around them, and having the, I know a lot of us felt like, cancel culture kind of came around, and people are like, oh, I don't want to talk about this. But you know, the truth is, I think we're all seeing beyond that now. It's like we need to fix this. Like it's
Yeah,
time. It's time we start making some real
absolutely.
changes, not the illusion of change. I was just telling my mom this because I'm like, you realize there's so much illusion to you having choices. Even the freedom of speech. So my mom's been kicked off of like all of the social media platforms for speaking on politics. And I tell her, I'm like, and she's like, well, Britain, they don't have freedom of speech, and look at, they're all being censored. I'm like, how many times have you been kicked off social media for talking about politics? We're being
Mm,
censored too. I'm like, you have the illusion that that's happening. We're all being censored.
yeah,
It's
it's
but
all an
what that
illusion.
yeah, it's all an illusion. Like, and how they do this, I will talk about, what is his name? George Carlton. He was a comedian in the like 90s, early 2000s. He talks about how you have all these choices around you. So you think you're making choices all day long. You're picking your cereal, you're picking ice cream out of 37 flavors. But at the end of the day, you follow those companies, you follow that chain up. It's all the same companies. It's all the same organizations. You go buy
Yes,
insurance. You may have a bunch of branches, but when you follow that train, it goes all the way up to the same insurance
to
company,
the
right?
same
So,
damn person.
right, exactly. Same with mortgages. We get the illusion that we have choices. Bankers, JP Morgan is like the top of everything, and yet we have different branches, so we feel like we're making, choices. But the truth is that that's the illusion, that you are actually making these choices on your own free will. It's so it's
Yeah.
people starting to see that system has created.
Oh, you're
You know,
unraveling a lot of things for us, Brianna. I love it. I love it. Even just when you mentioned the Roman Empire and ugh, we can't even get into that today. That's a whole,
no, we'll have to do another one. It's
yeah,
it's
we have to do
yeah, that's a whole
another.
thing.
That is a
The whole thing.
whole thing. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So
Oh, and then,
much.
there's a whole thing too, and I can actually connect that Roman Empire to the Anunnaki and through history, and how that all actually was part of us keeping into the prison system that was created. It's a pill. That's why I tell people, like, it didn't happen in the last 200 years. This has been happening for thousands of years. That's why
Yeah.
everybody feels so comfortable with it. They don't just, and I even was on, so I used to be a kind of like, well, I guess you would have called me a conspiracy theorist like 15 years ago. And I
Yeah.
was constantly talking about this kind of stuff. But, it turns out I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I was just right about a lot of this and saw it coming long before. I was like, I think I said all that. But I actually just recently reread a post that I had made on Facebook, and I was talking about, everybody was really talking about like uh, martial law, and how martial law was going to be unrolled on people. I'm like, if they're trying to control a society, they are not going to roll out martial law, because that will create fear and resistance. It's going to be slow. They're going to go after your food sources, your water sources. They're going to go after your medicine. They're going to go after your loved ones, your family, and it's going to be a slow process. And then now I just read that today, and I'm like, man, I wish I wasn't right on that one. But that is exactly what has happened. It wasn't a quick government taking over, and we're going to, that's not how they work. It's not how they've ever worked. If you look at the last 2,000 years, it was a very slow, integrative over generations. They offered new information to a generation, this goes back to those five monkeys, you know what I mean? And then that generation passed it on to theirs, and then they
It's,
integrate new into that generation. And down the line, until we all sit here living a belief that is absolutely archaic and it doesn't work for any of us, you know?
and we don't question it.
I mean, no one's questioning it. Well, people are
Yeah.
questioning it now, but
People are doing it now, but for the
yeah.
longest time they didn't. Like that's why, growing up, going back to my childhood, as young as I was, I couldn't make sense of why people were so passionate about what political affiliation that they had and why they would fight over it. It made no damn sense to me. I was just like, this is stupid. And why are we hurting each other because of different political affiliations? Like, I don't see much difference between the two parties. They both equally seem like they're full of BS. I
Yeah.
don't get it, right? But these are because we have these things that have been implanted and have been passed on generation after generation, and nobody has questioned it.
Well, and
It's
what you
so
just said is a
crazy.
very, very important key is that as a child, you were already aware to question how ridiculous this concept was. And that's why, kind of going back to our theme with this is like, it's so important to listen to children and their intuition and what they have to say because they see beyond what you've been in programmed or you've been programmed with, and you'll hear kids say the most profound things and we
Yeah.
kind of just brush it off, but it's like these are the truths, right? And these kids are whispering them to us, and it's our responsibility as adults and caregivers to listen to that and be like, you're right, this is ridiculous, and just to take a second to be like, I don't believe that. Why do I believe that? And it tells me that you're just like me. You were already being trained in the spiritual and awakening as a guide as a child because you had that wherewithal to know that that was weird. And I remember going back to like apple pie. I always tell people, I'm like, when I do inner child healing work, I tell people, I'm like, I want you to go back to your childhood and think of something you love to do. Not that you like ever were forced to do it, but like something you just enjoy doing. And it doesn't have to be something profound like, oh, I loved riding my bike or I loved nature. Sometimes it's the smallest things. Like, for me, I loved observation. I loved watching people. I remember as a kid, I would watch ant hills for hours. Like, I just found it
Oh, that's my
fascinating.
favorite. That's my
Yeah.
favorite. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. And that's because I was actually that was me getting prepared with apple pie to be a spiritual teacher and leader because I was observing human nature and things around me and how systems worked and how they were interconnected and how I found or how I fit in that role. And I didn't know this until like the last 5 years. It all just clicked after my near death experience. I was like, oh, it was there all along. And so I always tell
Mm.
people like go back to your inner child. That's the biggest thing right now that people could be doing is going back and healing that wound that was created in your childhood. None of us got out unscathed. I tell people all the time like there's nothing wrong with you. None of us got out of our childhood unscathed because we were held on and oppressed by belief systems from generations beyond us that don't fit in our society anymore. And it's up to us, I tell people my clients all the time. I'm like, if you're an adult and you're still blaming your childhood without actively trying to heal the wound, then you are a problem. You are the problem.
Mm.
You
Yeah.
have to actively take responsibility that you're no longer a child, that the things that happen to you is not fair at all. And I'm not saying that like to take anything away from experiences, but it's now our responsibility for not just ourselves or our family, but for the collective and the community to start looking at those wounds and how we can heal them because it is for the collective good to actually heal yourself. You're healing
Yes.
society as you heal yourself alone, and you're not going out and continuing the the traits that have hurt you, and passing them on to your child so that they have to break the cycle, and it doesn't have to be hard hitting either. Just I have a book up here somewhere about inner child healing, and it's like a workbook. You can get them on Amazon. Just just bringing it out of the subconscious. I tell people all the time, this is how you heal. Like, if you really want to know how to heal something that you don't know what you're trying to heal, is you have to bring it forward to your consciousness. And like workbooks are great for this because it gives you things to think about that you might not have thought about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Shadow workbooks are great for this, but it brings it out of the subconscious and you're forced to look at it. That's how you heal it. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, if you don't know it's there and it's just rattling around, you're continuing the loop. You have to like
Yeah.
bring that forward, look at it, and then accept it. And once you accept it as the truth, or accept that it's a core belief, a lot of times I talk about core beliefs is, you believe something, you don't even know why you believe it, but it's back there in that subconscious programming. And when you bring it forward to look at it, that core belief evaporates. And it's one less thing you don't have to worry about because now it's in the conscious mind and you're aware of the pattern. So, we need to really take responsibility of healing our inner child because it's actually going to benefit the generations coming behind us, to look at the pain that we have gone through. It wasn't fair. It's not, fair that we had to experience any of the things that we go through. But as soon as we take the victim standpoint away and we go into victor standpoint, this is where we can change the world. This is how we change societies because we're no longer a victim of our circumstances. We are the champion that is going to change it so the generations coming behind us do not have to experience the pain and the turmoil that we had to experience, you know?
Mm. Mm. Yes. Yes. Radical responsibility for your healing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely, Brianna. This has been so great. Can you tell us more about the work that you're currently doing and how you're helping others on their own journeys?
Yeah, of course. So I have a company. It's called Light and Breezy Coaching. I do energy healing. I do very specific quantum healing. So I work a lot with people's energy systems, their subtle bodies, recalibration. As you have emotions that are unprocessed, they actually stick within your etheric field. And this is why people get sick a lot when they've gone through a lot of trauma that hasn't been processed because it's actually
Yeah.
bouncing in that etheric field, eventually sticking to the physical body because it has nowhere to go. The fundamental that we all know is that, energy cannot be destroyed, it can only be transferred. Well, this is a universal truth. So where your energy is not healing the wound, the energy that goes somewhere. It has to go somewhere. That's why people get sick when they've gone through a lot of trauma. So I clear energy systems with people. I have workshops that work on mindset and how to shift your mindset, what the spiritual awakening is and how it looks. You can find all that on my website, lightandbreezycoaching.com. I have a couple books on Amazon where I talk about frequency and how to heal generational patterns through emotional affirmations and frequencies. I don't know if you guys have seen one of these yet. Have you done any work with these yet?
I haven't personally done any work with it, but I
Okay.
remember you telling me about it last time.
Yep. So this is a frequency generator and it's programmable from 0 to 1,000. And I highly recommend people get these. It's so great for healing, not only emotional pain or trauma, but physical pain and trauma. And then my book on Amazon actually helps teach people how to use this and what frequency to use to heal. Like say you have, an infection. I'll just go with infection. So infection is caused by the emotion of anger, and so if you have unprocessed anger, it will create an infection. And depending on where that infection is on the body, I could tell you what the actual anger that you're holding on to is. And you can use frequency to clear the anger from your body, and then affirmations, because if you believe in the Bible, if you believe everything, and there's a very key piece I tell people. I'm like, the very first words in the Bible is God spoke, right? So sound, frequency, it created everything. He created through speaking, right? So I always tell them, like, there's so much hidden in that Bible about vibration and
So
frequency. But
much. So
I
much.
know we could do a whole thing on the hidden uh truths of the Bible, but
You need to
yeah,
come
he said
back.
yeah. Yeah, he's but that's it. He spoke into existence. Frequency, sound, healing it's vital. So, yeah, you can get my book on Amazon. It's called Healing Frequencies Made Easy. And then I recommend everybody get one of these. It's also an EMF protector, which, you know, everything in your house is creating an electromagnetic field, which actually creates a disruption and interference in your own field.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do a lot of work with that. That's my main thing. But as you could tell, I do a lot of other things.
Beautiful, beautiful, Brianna. And one last point I wanted us to end with, because I know we spoke about this prior in our last meeting, but you know, when you brought up the spiritual journey and how it's so easy for people to get disappointed along their spiritual path, because
Hmm.
there is like usually, for example, for a lot of people, when they embark on a spiritual path, is because everything else that they've been doing hasn't been working. And they come upon this place whereby they kind of hit a wall. And that's usually when a lot of people begin to lean more into these concepts, into a lot of the things that we've been speaking about. But there is just like a set of, like, I don't know if it's an expectation or maybe the heaviness sometimes that we bring to these things, because we we so much at the time, all a lot of the times, we want something to save us. We want a savior. We want something to give us the answers to our problems. We want something or someone to make things right, right? And so
Yeah.
sometimes when you embark on that journey, like the expectation doesn't match the reality, because you're expecting some to reach some level of perfection, and that's not what the spiritual journey is truly about. And I think you spoke beautifully to that the last time in our last conversation.
Yeah, I like how you said that we want for someone to save us. That was another little pillar, you know, Disney and all the princesses and how they needed to be rescued. That's embedded now into you, that, you know, you need to look outside of yourself for healing, right? Or that somebody else
Yeah.
is going to rescue you. So that's programmed into you as a child, right? So that's very good point that you made. But
Yeah.
yeah, so the one thing that I talk a lot with my clients about is, you know, healing is not linear. Um, you can heal something and then all of a sudden 5 years later it comes back up and you're like, what the heck? Like, why am I looking at this again? Because you're never the same person as you go through the levels of healing, right? So the same event might come up. I think, you know, I was talking about my dream and about how I realized that I had healed that emotionally and spiritually, but I hadn't released it from my physical body. Um, that's true. There's layers to this. So I think people need to understand that this is a journey. This is not a destination. You are not going to hit a finishing point. I actually have had several people that are like, oh, I did my healing journey. No, that's like no, you didn't. Anybody that's really doing the healing work knows that this comes in layers and it's going
Yeah.
to keep happening, not just in this lifetime. You have gone lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of healing things. I read Akashic records, so I'll tell everyone, you may think that you're, you know, running in circles. I always tell people, like, you're not going in circles, you're going up a staircase. It's a spiral, right? You just have to change your perspective. But when I read Akashic Records, I can look at what challenges you're experiencing in this lifetime, and I can actually see what percent of that lesson has been completed, and it is always multiple lifetimes. For example, I am learning like gratitude in this lifetime, and I'm like 88% finished, but I've been doing lifetimes of this, right? So we can't look at this as like a finishing line, because there's no finish line to this path or this journey. And you know, so so feeling the gratitude of where you are and understanding that these experiences are not designed to hurt you, they are to evolve your soul, and that's what we're here to do, is evolve, so that as we experience our lifetimes coming up, you don't go back, you don't factory reset into a new human, like, with no experiences. Your evolution in this lifetime come with you to the next, and so you're gonna be more evolved in that soul. So you'll have another lifetime that comes from a place of deeper healing, and it will be maybe a less healing path. You know, it's like maybe not so hard hitting as we have in this lifetime. But yes,
Yeah.
it is it's a spiritual expectation that I run into a lot. That people are like, I don't feel different. You're not changing your story. Okay, you're changing your perception and your perspective of the story,
Yeah.
and that kind of goes back to what I was saying about the rescue divers. It's your attitude in which you enter that water. If you understand that this is an experience for growth, healing, community, those kind of things, and you stop looking at it like a victim, you can have bad things happen, but you're going to power right through it, and it's not going to stop you or limit you the way that it would have prior. And so if you're just looking for a quick fix, this is not the journey. This is
Yeah.
about evolution.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Brheanna.
Yeah.
This was such an amazing conversation. Please tell us where we can find your work. I know, like you mentioned, your book on Amazon, and give us
Yeah.
your website and anything else
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yeah, you can find everything that I have, my socials, everything at lightandbreezycoaching.com. Yes, and you can find the link to my book on there as well, and to the generators if you guys are interested in those, and using those together, it will create massive healing. That's, I like to call passive healing, because you could plug this thing in. It does 250 square feet. So it's not just it's everyone around you is being affected by it. And it's just a great way to kind of heal without necessarily doing too much. And keeping your frequency is really important right now. I know we're all very aware of the 5G towers and the frequencies that are in our ionosphere right now that are actually very detrimental to us and causing a
Yeah.
lot of health problems. So these help keep that away. Um, I don't want to die. Okay, here's my tinfoil hat thing. I tell people, I'm like, why do you think they took away lead paint out of your house? We all know they don't care about your health, right? So why take
Mm-hmm.
lead paint away, right? X-rays, microwaves, all are deflected by lead. So
Oh.
these frequencies, these things they're putting into our ionosphere, that 5G towers. We all know the Havana flu. If you want to go and look into how they've used sonic weapons and frequencies as weapons. But yeah, now they have all the lead paint out of your house, and so this will help keep that out of your space. Yeah, so tinfoil hats off now.
I love it. I love
But
it.
I
I
really
love
good.
your hat.
Yeah.
I love the tinfoil hat.
Well, I
Thank
mean,
you
I
so
tell
much.
people, I'm like, yeah, if you go get an X-ray, the first thing they do is put lead over you to protect you. But yet we don't have lead paint anymore. It's not like anybody was really eating the chips off the wall, right?
Right.
Um, but yeah, we have lead in our Stanley cups, right? Nobody's stopping
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
I don't know,
They're
tinfoil
still
hat,
letting a lot of things. Yep.
right? Well, and I just sold a house, and they had 3 pages asking me about the lead paint in my house, and they had one question about the septic system. I'm like, why are you guys so worried about the paint in my house? It's, but now I understand it.
Ah, gosh. When you know, you know.
Well, and you can't unknow it.